The Mirror of Morals. Lyra sat in the dim light of the great archives, surrounded by towers of crumbling parchment. Her assignment was simple, yet frustrating. Find the meaning of a single word that her professor had scribbled on the chalkboard. Exemplum, she whispered to the empty room. It sounds like a spell, but it feels like a riddle. She sighed, resting her chin on her palm, wishing the books would simply speak for themselves. From the shadows of the stacks, a tall man appeared, his robes stained with ink and his eyes bright with a mischievous spark. This was Cyprian, the keeper of forgotten lore. He noticed Lyra's frustration and tapped the page of her book. "A word is just a shell, Lyra," he said softly. "To understand an exemplum, you don't look for a definition. You look for a mirror." Lyra looked up, puzzled. "A mirror? I'm looking for a literary device, not a vanity set." Cyprian laughed and pulled up a stool. "An exemplum is a story that serves as an example," he explained. "In the old days, a speaker would tell a tale, not just to entertain, but to prove a moral point. Let me show you one, and you will see the word come to life." Cyprian began his tale. Long ago, two travelers named Milo and Kale stumbled upon a golden apple lying in the center of a dusty road. It was the largest, brightest fruit either had ever seen. "We shall share it," Milo cried, though his eyes lingered on the gold. "Indeed," Kale agreed, though he was already calculating how many silver coins the apple could fetch at the market. As the sun began to set, they decided to camp. Milo volunteered to go into the nearby village to buy bread and wine for their celebration. As he walked, a dark thought took root in his mind. "If Kale were gone," he whispered, "the apple would be mine alone." He stopped at an apothecary and purchased a tiny vial of sleeping poison, intending to slip it into Kale's drink. Meanwhile, back at the camp, Kale's heart was just as heavy with treachery. He sat by the fire, sharpening his hunting knife. "Milo is a good friend," Kale muttered to the flames. "But a golden apple is a once-in-a-lifetime find. When he returns, I will start a play fight and trip him into the deep ravine." He tested the edge of his blade with his thumb. When Milo returned, the air was thick with unspoken tension. They sat together, the golden apple placed on a stump between them like a silent judge. "Drink, friend," Milo said, handing Kale a cup of wine laced with the toxin. But before Kale could take a sip, he lunged at Milo, trying to shove him toward the edge of the dark cliff nearby. In their frantic scuffle, the cup was knocked from Milo's hand, spilling the poisoned wine onto the ground. Kale tripped over a root, and as he fell, his hand swiped the golden apple from the stump. With a cry of despair, they both watched as the treasure slipped from Kale's fingers and tumbled down into the abyss, lost forever in the jagged rocks below. The scene in the library returned. Lyra sat in silence for a moment, the image of the falling apple still vivid in her mind. "They ended up with nothing," she said. "The greed that made them want the apple was the very thing that destroyed their chance of having it." She looked at Cyprian. "That's the point, isn't it? The story was told to prove that greed is self-destructive." Cyprian nodded, a proud smile touching his lips. "Exactly. That story was the exemplum. It isn't just a plot, it is a piece of evidence for a moral truth. When you see a story that exists, to say, 'Look at what happens when you do this,' you have found your word." Lyra smiled and dipped her quill. She didn't need the dictionary anymore. She had the mirror.